Some of the stories that have been going crazy lately, and we've had a bunch of great opinions about it, a lot of views on YouTube on this one particular clip when it came to Russell Brand, right? This is something that hit home for a lot of us. A lot of people are asking the question, why? And I want to say that this is all due right now, the attacks on Russell Brand, because I think we're in an intense time of acceleration, of mass acceleration, right? People talk about, you know, the COVID protocol. It's mass acceleration for the ruling class's decisions and how we live our lifestyle.
Is that a real like term? Like
yeah, mass acceleration. Like they're accelerating on taking away more of our civil liberties and having more control.
This is my question.
Okay.
Did they? But okay, are you telling me like it's not like the WEF made that term as a positive thing? It's like somebody's terming what's going on.
It's what's going on. I think it's more our good friend Sam Tripoli and all that group, the tinfoil hats, which they have their show tonight. Union of the Unwanted. I love Sam Tripoli. I was at a party with him the other day talking about people who talk about this time of mass acceleration, right? They have to get caught up and move us into the 15-minute cities. They have to get caught up and make sure they have complete control. You know, there was TDS, which was Trump Derangement Syndrome, which was meant to split the people. And then CDS, COVID Derangement Syndrome, was meant to split the people even more. It's not about a biological virus. It's not about a vaccine. It's more about control. Well, more for them, less for us.
Did you see the clip of Bill Gates like being like, "Hey, climate change. I mean, it's not going to end the planet." Yeah. He was doing like, does he own like shares of green energy that he's selling? Dude. He was like, "Hey, it's not a big deal." He just went on somewhere like he did with COVID.
Yeah.
Just after he unloaded his shares.
Yes.
Does he have shares in something that he just dumped?
Well, I mean, he's bought a lot of farmland and there's other stuff that he's involved with. And obviously, you know, he's part of that whole mass acceleration where it's more for them, meaning more land, more resources, more control, less for you, less of your voice, less of your civil liberties, less of everything. And that's what this whole thing was about. And that's what I think the threat of Russell Brand was, because as he has sobered up and got off his drugs and whatnot and cleared himself up and changed his whole lifestyle, I think he had a clear vision on what was going on, and him pushing back against the machine is why we see all this stuff coming apart now, coming on him now, the attacks now, today.
Well, that Bill Maher clip, I harp on it.
You hit it on the nose, Kurt.
The crowd of Bill Maher liberals that he completely won over, and God forbid he ran for some kind of office in England, and also they don't have the kind of laws we do. What's the law that they have where they're going to arrest somebody from Rumble if they ever go to England?
Oh, I don't even know about that law.
You haven't seen,
I know we were going over a lot of the laws.
It's accelerated since the Rumble letter.
Well, they wanted to rearrange society over the sniffles. That's what Steve Poikin would always say. They want to change everything, right? It's more about control. It's more about putting people in QR codes, 15-minute cities, track and trace policies, and that's what they're really afraid of right now. That's why they're censoring up the yin-yang and, you know, just trying to control the whole bit. Now, so this is Russell Brand and his show today that was released early today. I think he had something like 79,000 people watching. Somebody told me, like, it was just ridiculous. He also had our good friend on the big guy, Jimmy Dean Dore, today. So let's take a listen to what Russell Brand has to say, and we'll go right into it. And I want your opinions right off the bat. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that share button. Craig Pasta, Jardula, Kurt Metzger, Misha Lotta in the house, filling in for Jimmy Dore. We love you. Take a listen.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. Obviously, it's been an extraordinary and distressing week, and I thank you very much for your support and for questioning the information that you've been presented with. By now, you're probably aware that the British government have asked big tech platforms to censor our online content, and that some online platforms have complied with that request. What you may not know is that this happens in the context of the Online Safety Bill, which is a piece of UK legislation that grants sweeping surveillance and censorship powers, and it's a law that has already been passed. I also don't imagine you've heard of the Trusted News Initiative. Now, as is often the case when a word like trusted is used as part of an acronym to describe an unelected body, trust is the last thing you should be offering. The Trusted News Initiative is a collaboration between big tech and legacy media organizations to target, control, choke and shut down independent media organizations like this one. We'll be talking about that on our show on Monday on Rumble. But just to give you an idea of what the TNI is, this is a quote from one of their spokespeople. Because the actual real rivalry now is not between the BBC and CNN globally, it's actually between all trusted news providers and digital platforms.
Who's the trusted ones, right? They're telling you the ones that are trusted and the ones who are the enemy.
It's clear that these organizations collaborate in constructing narratives, whether that's around the war or the pandemic, and of course there are other examples. And it's very clear to me that we have to be very, very cautious indeed. That's why I'm asking you to follow me on Rumble. Rumble have made a clear commitment to free speech, and Rumble is the primary platform that we will be streaming from. We'll be back this Monday, and as usual, we'll be talking about deep state and corporate collusion and how ordinary democracy is anathema now, how it's shut down, ignored, and avoided. We'll be talking about a military-industrial complex that is able to facilitate and start wars that seem sometimes to be little more than money laundering operations. And that's with all respect to the hundreds of thousands of victims of the numerous ongoing wars in the world at the moment. We'll be talking about the role of Big Pharma and how Big Pharma have been able to influence government policy around the world and how they've been able to evade due liability and necessary scrutiny, how they've been able to avoid media investigation that perhaps ought be due them. And of course, we'll be talking about media corruption and censorship. So please follow me on Rumble, because that's the only way that we can keep our voice. You can go to rb.rumble.com to support me directly. And
all right, we'll leave that be right now. It's kind of interesting, too, as well. I talked to some of the producers. I talked to Malcolm the other day, just recently today. We had a little segment that really wasn't on a keynote. We were talking about Rumble, right? Like the importance of Rumble going to that like particular situation, that particular platform where a lot of people were very suspicious of it because of Peter Thiel and whatnot. But that was a discussion this whole weekend between, you know, Elon Musk was raising his voice about, oh, Twitter is a place for freedom since I bought it. But, you know, Twitter hasn't brought back either Alex Jones or Owen Schroyer, for that matter, or whatnot, you know.
I don't even know him.
Who?
But bring him back, Owen Schroyer. Who's that?
He's this second guy. He was the guy that has been on InfoWars that kind of has been promoted up and now is doing his own thing. He's on. There's 3 shows on InfoWars. There was a morning show that is now taken over by Mr. Harrison, Owen Schroyer, and Alex Jones. Those are the 3 shows on InfoWars. So Owen Schroyer is one of those guys who's also been disbarred, never been allowed back on Twitter, and a lot of people that rumble.
What did he do?
Same thing, same conversation, same rhetoric as Alex Jones. That's why he's just a threat. Just talking about, you know, vaccinations and all that other stuff, and control in the web.
No, I thought you meant like, you know, whichever. There's so many shootings, I confuse names. The ones that the thing he got sued for, I thought you meant.
I'm sure he's there talking about those things too.
Does he owe $1 trillion too?
No, he does not yet, but he is the platform and he hasn't gone back. So I asked Malcolm.
It works.
Well, we got to make sure we put that up there because that was interesting conversation. There's a lot of conversation. I think that we have to always incorporate into what's going on about where we're going. We always have to be conscious of who's controlling things. Catherine Austin Fitz would talk about that when it comes to Bitcoin, and a lot of people would talk about when it comes to Rumble, the whole situation. However, I think we elaborated perfectly.
Bottom line, the trusted news media has to prove their innocence to me now for every single story they say.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. He doesn't have to prove he's innocent.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know since when in the hell that was now the law, but the entire British media, anytime they say anything about anything, America's sucks. I mean, America's is like, probably we're on the same boat, but the British.
Same boat. Yeah.
British media, when I see them, I can't, maybe it's just the accents is what is getting me. But I don't trust a single goddamn thing they say. I don't trust their editing.
Yeah.
Everything's a Joe Rogan color swap. That's how they approach every single story.
Here's the thing. They don't want you to think for yourself. They want you what is it called? Mob mentality, tribal thinking. That's where they want you to be. And guys like Russell Brand, guys like our boss, Jimmy Dore, we promote the independent thinking. And that's what they don't want more than anything. They don't want you to think for yourself. They want you to just get in line and follow. And that's what it's all about. That's what that mainstream media is. And we've all experienced attacks from friends and people and whatnot. You know, one of the great things that Rick Overton had told me is, Pasta, now you don't have to pretend and you know who your friends are, right? But that's what it was meant to be.
On Twitter, or you got actual?
In general, in Twitter, everywhere. No, in general, in person, your friends.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm sure you've experienced it too, Kurt. Jimmy was on Russell's show today, and Jimmy laid out exactly why the attacks are coming, and I wanted to play because I think it's awesome. Take a listen to this.
I wonder, Jimmy, how you see the role of independent media relating to new independent political movements, and even if those political movements are currently within, in your country, the main parties. I'm talking specifically, I suppose, about Bobby Kennedy, who's emerging out of this pandemic and war period as an authentic voice, and in spite of his surname and the obvious fact that that means to a degree he's a legacy politician, he's creating a lot of hope. He's creating a lot of traction. He's the first political figure, perhaps other than Trump, with Trump's relationship with Twitter, who's been able to gain access to an audience without having to move through the legacy media gatekeepers who seem hell-bent on preventing oppositional voices from uniting and from being amplified. When you talk about revolution, obviously, it seems that in 2023, with a militarized police force, with a surveillance state, with anti-protest laws, with the increasing ability of governments to switch off money supply, to shut off your tech, to shut off your ability to communicate, that the type of revolution that we're discussing would have to have a very different flavor and would perhaps have to coalesce around political figures that are willing to carry that burden. Do you think it is a revolution that requires leaders? Do you think it is a revolution that's happening at the level of the nation? Do you think it's a revolution that by its nature has to include a significant portion of the population? And if so, what do you think is going to be the significance of relationships between independent media, particularly if independent media is under attack, and independent political voices? How are these new nexuses or nexi to be formed? And do you see that formation taking place yet, Jimmy?
Well, I do. I think Bobby Kennedy, as his almost entire campaign is being run in alternative independent media. He's going around the mainstream news media, and he's going directly to the people. He's going through podcasts. And so, of course, they have to demonize those podcasts. I just saw the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, said he's worried because his son is listening to Joe Rogan. And I'm like, yeah, well, guess what? Joe Rogan didn't lie to his kid about the Ukraine war, about the truckers, about COVID, mandates, vaccines, lockdowns. Guess who did? Gavin Newsom did, and the establishment. This idea that the corporate news and the government officials put forward that somehow we're at risk, imperiled by independent media spreading misinformation. Well, I'm here to tell you, we all know that the number one spreader of misinformation and lies is the government. The second is the corporate media. And third is everybody else. And it's a distant third. And so this idea that we have to worry about independent citizens having an opinion and sharing it on social media, that's the problem, again, is misdirection. It's having us turn on each other instead of turning on the powerful.
Which is what I just said, right? It's about turning us on each other. We've all experienced this in our personal lives, our Twitter lives, and whatnot. You know, when people say you should really be thankful to Jimmy for giving you the opportunity to do this, I'm like, yeah, he's the number 2 person I got to thank most. And
but
like,
what if that means approaching the right? I'm trying to be Cenk Uygur. But what if that means attracting people from the right?
Well, I hear you, but they say, well, who's the number 1 person you want to thank most? And I say Rachel Maddow, because Rachel Maddow, Chris Hayes, all these people have provided the opportunity for us to do what we're doing right now. That's the most important thing. And when he just talked about, number 1, the government lies to you most. Number 2 is the mainstream media. He's absolutely right. That's why we are growing so much and people are listening to us, and the independent media are the biggest threat, and that's why they're going after the biggest threats in independent media, including this guy and Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, like, that's like extra, because that's like being an extra betrayer, because he was such a beloved Hollywood You know,
He
like
was
Seth
when
Rogen
he was.
told him he was so cool in a movie.
Yeah.
So you understand the betrayal
Yeah.
to the politics of Seth Rogen?
Totally, because at one point when they get you, they think you got you bought. They think they got you silenced. They think they can control you, and then all of a sudden you spin out of control and you start thinking with your noggin and you start spreading some truth, where a lot of citizen journalists do. That's the biggest threat to the empire.
All the things that this bullshit ass UK media trotted out are all things before he had his illustrious movie career. They all loved, and all whatever stories, most of them. Like that TV show story of those were all known things. It was like, oh, it's so cool. So like, it's now that he's a guy that it would never do something like now he's a problem.
Yeah.
If he had kept doing his misconduct, there'd be no problem.
Yeah. Especially if he was still in the grips of Hollywood and speaking their language. Let's
You gotta
have
you gotta have like a mutual blackmail situation. And it doesn't have to be like even any real crime. It's got to be something that in popular culture someone could say, you know, like they could Paula Deen you.
Yeah.
And so we have to keep our eye on the ball. And what happened is, I remember when Christian Smalls, if you don't know who that is, he started the Amazon Union on Staten Island in New York City. And he was a black guy who got fired by Amazon at the beginning of COVID. And he stood out there and he organized those workers against them. And who did he organize with? He organized with Trump voters, because that's who is on Staten Island. That's who's working at that Amazon fulfillment center. So this is class. They don't want us coming together by class. That's why they stress identity politics. Let's remember what identity politics is. Instead of the establishment fixing a problem, what they do is they put someone in charge of the problem from a marginalized group. So now if you still complain about that problem, they can dismiss you as a phobe of some kind, a sexist, or a white supremacist. That's what that about. You know what I say? If it was 1860, the Democrats wouldn't be fixing slavery. They'd be bragging about their first transgendered slave owner.
That's great.
You know Ibram X. Kendi? I just saw this on the way over.
I have no idea who that is.
He wrote Anti-Racist Baby, and he's like
what's his name?
Ibram X. Kendi.
No,
black guy with dreads, but he's going bald, but he kept the dreads, so he looks like Predator.
I don't know
who
that is. I'm sorry.
All right,
he wrote a book though, or
him, Robin DiAngelo.
Got it.
You don't remember all the race theory hucksters that were like real big for all of BLM?
I'm sorry.
times?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, the reason I bring him up, one of his big, and a lot of people say this, not just this dipshit, class is downstream from race.
Yeah. Well, that's...
A dog is a kind of German Shepherd, too.
Yeah. Well, you know what I don't like is when people go, well, class is connected to race is connected to class. That's what Cornel West was trying to say. I'm like, well,
class
explain
comes
to me.
above that. That's the macro.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
well, you know what I would say, Kurt?
Classism.
I say, go explain to me. Go explain to me that white guy who's homeless on the street. How is class connected to race there in that
it's
situation?
When you average everyone together and depersonalize them, that's where you see the numbers really come out.
Who was it just recently who talked about it? It was Dave Smith, right? Are you doing Skankfest, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so Dave Smith said the other day, he goes, when Obama got in trouble and he could no longer talk about, finances or economics or his foreign policy because it was going to affect him, he immediately threw culture wars into the issue. He started talking about, LGBT community and all the culture wars.
Oh, is that why he changed course on?
Because culture wars divide us more than anything else. The culture wars is what splits the people. That's why they thrust the culture wars into our society. And that's what Jimmy was talking about right here. When you start talking about class, what Christian Smalls did, when you start saying, hey, man, I don't give a shit who you voted for, how you feel about abortion, and how do you feel about this job, the thing we have a common goal on, and no matter what, that's what we need more than anything right now. I'm not saying you can never talk about race, whatnot, and you should talk about race, but like you said, class is the macro because it's the one thing that brings us together because it's the oligarchs and the rest of us.
Did I watch a clip of that? There's that creep Noah Berlatsky, who's like still, I guess, in fine standing with the media people. And it was a video called "Should We Have Sympathy for Trump Voters?" It was like old, like from 2016. Yeah. It was all this. I mean, this dude couldn't look more like a creep, possibly. Talking about, I don't think that we should. Okay. Meanwhile, he works at for a MAP, like something to destigmatize people who have pedophile attractions. Mm-hmm. He volunteers as the communication director.
Yeah.
So he's got empathy for that.
Yeah.
But not somebody who voted wrong. someone who voted wrong is far worse than a pedophile.
Let me say this too is about the culture wars, and the reason why I'm going to bring this next clip up there. But just because the independent media is independent doesn't mean it's always right. Because I do believe that people still kind of buy into the whole culture war bullshit.
Stop taking pills and whatever. Every stupid, you got to have an out of the box position. Just stop doing that.
Candace Owens. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. Listen, I get just as aggravated when the left demonizes the right as I do as the right demonizing the left. There's a lot of people who don't understand, leftists like myself and the Gray Zone and Jimmy Dore and even Kim Iverson, where we're at, and they always kind of want to lump us and put us into a box and still kind of politicize everything.
Then how else can I dismiss you if I don't?
Well, watch this here. Once again, the whole anti-communist freaking mentality, and anybody who has a leftist ideology is a communist. I can't stand this shit.
And Russell Brand proceeded to do whatever he wanted to do with a glazed look in his eye. She then, as we learned, within 24 hours went to a rape crisis center. So yes, these allegations are credible. And I just want to make that statement that despite the fact that we may all love who Russell Brand is today, and I do love who Russell Brand is today, when Russell Brand was a commie leftist and the media applauded him and put him everywhere, that he was a drug addict. He was a sex addict. He was in his addictions and he was being celebrated by the same media that is now trying to take him down. And that is the portion that is suspicious. Why did the media wait until Russell Brand was clean and sober and married and having his third child, right, on the brink of having his third child as he is right now, and speaking out about trying to, and I felt this, when I sat down with him the first time, that he is redeeming himself. Why wait until 11 years to bring forth these allegations? This is the part that people are angry about, because obviously this is a plot to take him down now that he is standing up and speaking about big government, that he is speaking out against COVID, against all the things that are happening. They went, oh, okay, well, we know your secrets. In fact, we kept your secrets when you were our friend, when you were a horrible, rotten person, right? When you were living like you were Hunter Biden, we were willing to bury all the stuff that we knew about you. But now that you're sober and you're speaking a little more conservatively, we're going to take you down. And that should bother you.
Is he conservative?
Right? So what is the answer to that? I don't know.
No, he's not. But that's what this is about. This is once again kind of try to passively slip in the bullshit. Oh, the leftists are commies and socialists, and they're awful. That lefty. This to me is not willing to understand and accept somebody who thinks differently than you.
She works
but then to bat them down.
Okay, she works for the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
So if you're going to take a job there, you're going to be required.
Are you going to be required?
Yeah. You can't work at the Daily Wire and not toe the basic line.
I don't know.
It's not even Ben Shapiro's
when Kim
line.
worked for The Hill, she didn't get those restrictions. When Fiorella works for RT, she doesn't get those restrictions. I don't think the Daily Wire says that anybody who's left, you have to frame them as a communist.
It's about their audience, and you're dealing with their audience. So that's like the most like whatever.
Well, that's the thing. The real independent media doesn't. I mean, listen. Listen. Sometimes the real independent media will isolate their audiences. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's they think talking to a conservative is a form of conservatism.
Yeah,
just speaking to a conservative.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. These things used to be old school leftists, right? When you were freedom of speech, you were a leftist. When you were freedom of press, you were a leftist. When you were anti-war and anti-intervention,
right,
you were a leftist. So I don't know what this whole and then
all
in the next clip,
mean nothing.
Yeah,
I will say it made me laugh. I was watching Bill Maher podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this, and I felt like this too. People are like, well, I'm liberal. Like I didn't change. The thing moved.
Yeah,
and
the Democrats moved.
Yeah, I mean, I thought
they were already bad, but they even moved further to this crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, that also technically might be defined as a conservative, like when you're the one that won't move with the thing.
I don't know. I mean, I just think that you have conservative values. You have conservative values, but
keep in mind, I don't give a shit about any of those labels. I don't understand why people cling to this. Like, I got to have my identity of my group.
Yeah.
Just when you see the issue that's right, pick the right.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't go, well, you got overall.
Yeah.
The lesser of two evils.
She's just the misconception. Oh, he's moving to a more conservative platform, so conservatives are always right. I mean, that's just dumb. It's once again part of the problem of not understanding, accepting, and having nuanced conversations from people who have different ideologies.
Conservatives moved to a more him platform is what happened.
Listen to this, because she even uses the term hammer and sickle. This is her with Russell Brand when they did the interview. Look at his face there, though. He's got that kind of serious look here.
And yeah, I know I'm being a little hyperbolic. You weren't fully hammer and sickle, but I would just definitely
weren't
say
fully
that
hammer and sickle.
you, as we all have, developed.
But just recently, she said when he went for full commie. I mean,
did I watch her do a video where she went to private prisons to talk to a select group of private prisoners so they could tell her how great private prisons are? And no, they're not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there. I'm like, I wonder if she's aware.
I mean,
that she's Jane Fonda talking to the Viet Cong at the Hilton Hanoi right now.
She's really conflating the issue and mixing it up and making it muddying the waters. Like what was done to her with Ted Lieu, try to really kind of go after her about Nazism when she was just making a comparison. She's doing the same thing over here. And that's why I think the independent media can be guilty of the same thing.
Wasn't her big thing where she was a big time feminist?
I think she was a big time leftist at one point. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but
by the way, I don't care. Like, whatever she said, because she said a couple things I've said right in the beginning of the show, close to them, aside from the stupid parts. So whatever, I agree with the stuff I agree with.
Watch how Russell gets. He's awesome, because this is what I'm saying. He's more understanding and opening up to listening to people who think differently the way I am. You know, I was just at a party recently with Sam Tripoli and Mickey Willis and Del Bigtree was there, and we were having a good time and stuff like that. And I know that Mickey, he produces a lot of films, and he's always like anti-Marxist, anti-socialist. And I told them, I was like, you know, I'm not an anti-Marxist, I'm not an anti-socialist. They're like, you're a socialist? I'm like, no, I consider myself a leftist libertarian of sorts, but I'm not anti-socialism because I've been to country where there are Marxists, and I understand them. There are good things about communism, there are bad things about communism.
I consider myself more grindcore.
Yeah.
But I'm normcore, I would
But the funny thing is, too, Kurt, is that people like Candace Owens, like she'll praise capitalism all the time, right? It's the Five Eyes countries that went really full authoritarianism during the whole COVID lockdown situation. So she's completely wrong. It's a nuanced conversation, what I'm saying.
These are all the people that'll be the first ones to tell you how great Western civilization is.
Yeah.
All the stuff you hate, I got news for you, it came from Western civilization. Including Marxism.
Bingo. Well, the whole thing is that
China didn't invent that.
No. Well, Ron Paul talked about it the other day. He goes, most of the people in Congress now on the left, these Democrats, they're Marxists. But he even stopped. He goes, well, they're not like an old school Marxist, like a real Marxist. There's cultural Marxism, right? Cultural Marxism came long after Karl Marx. Long after Marx.
Hey, look, who do you like better is what it boils down to. Hulk Hogan or Nikolai Volkov? Who do you want to win? Do you want Hulk Hogan to win or Nikolai Volkov, the Russian?
I want a good match, and I want to see a little bit of Nikolai Volkov's moves and a little bit of Hulk Hogan's moves.
And everyone has fun.
Mixed economy, Kurt. We can take the good from the good and the bad from the bad. What I'm trying to say is that this rhetoric here that she's talking about is divisive rhetoric, and she shouldn't be playing that game. We should be understanding what works best and take from each one. There is some good things about...
And guess what? My feet shouldn't be as long as forearms either.
I think there are some good things about central planning. Take a listen.
For the years, and it was a wonderful interview. And I think one of the things that you definitely have always been open to is conversation, even with people that you disagree with. So I totally understand the success and why people are totally obsessed with your podcast now and everything that you're doing, because you're just an interesting person to listen to. I love watching Russell Brand clips.
Thank you. You're really lovely to say that to me. Now, when I talk about sort of, I don't find you to be a hard person. I think that you're actually a deal of fun, and that you're very bright and sparky and a joy to be around, actually. But I do think that you are a sort of deliberately iconoclastic. I think you are
what does that mean?
Great provocateur. Yeah. I think you enjoy saying controversial things. That's a sort of my assessment of you. But I believe that all of those things are possible within joy and good humor, and of course within the parameters of accepting that you have had a completely different life to me. You're completely entitled to entirely different political perspective, and in any kind of democracy worthy of the name, you would accept and embrace those differences. Now,
I wanted to play that too while you look up the word iconoclastic. There used to be a show called Iconoclast.
A person who attacks cherished beliefs or institutions?
No, there's a different word for that.
A destroyer of images used in religious worship?
I don't think so. There should be another one, but beside the point, I want to, because there was a show called Iconoclast, and it showed...
Yeah, it was Dave Chappelle and Oprah. Or no, and Maya Rudolph. Not Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou was... yeah. So, you're right. So,
Maya Rudolph. It was Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou. So, in this is another reason why they don't like Russell Brand. This right here. the willingness to be able to talk to people who think differently than you, the willingness to not play the cancel culture game, that is important too as well, because they want us. Like I said, this whole thing is about splitting the people. It's about pitting neighbor against neighbor. So if you're willing to listen to your neighbor and not participate in cancel culture, that's a threat to the empire. They don't want that. They like people who are vile to the other side. That's who they like. They like The View. They like those people over there because they pit neighbor against neighbor. Russell has always been against that. And even still, while she's saying we're not going full hammer and sickle, once again, these same people will call Joe Biden a communist. That's how crazy they are. And if you go to a real communist in Latin America and say, do you think Joe Biden's a communist? They'll laugh in your face. He's not. So this last clip over here is another one I want to play too as well, because once again, getting back to the real reason, you mentioned Bill Gates, right?
He just said stop panicking about climate change. Bill Gates.
Yeah. Well, listen to what Russell Brand says about Bill Gates.
Something.
Of course he does. He's got his fingers and hands and everything. Listen to this.
Bill Gates epitomizes this trend. I've got no particular thing against Bill Gates, but he does represent a certain mentality. I'll do what I want to do. You do what I want you to do. That's the Bill Gates way. And today, we're going to work out who's contributing more to climate change, you or Bill Gates. Let's see. Bill Gates has shrugged off allegations that he's a hypocrite for climate campaigning while travelling by private jet. Nah! In an interview with BBC's Amal Rajan, Gates addressed the accusation by saying he offset his family's carbon footprint and contributes to solutions. Oh, I didn't realise that. That's cool. Let's have a look.
What do you say to the charge that if you are a climate change campaigner, but you also travel around the world on a private jet, you're a hypocrite?
Well, I buy the gold standard of funding Climeworks to do direct air capture that far exceeds my family's carbon footprint. So, should I stay at home and not come to Kenya and learn about farming and malaria?
Yeah. You know how you're just making up a reason for why you should be able to do what you want to do? Everyone feels like that. We all feel like we should be able to do what we want to do and that we make mistakes and we're not perfect, so we try our best to make it up how we can. And guess what? That's what you do as well. So, in a way, you should stop telling us what to do, shouldn't you?
Anyway, I'm comfortable.
Comfortable with that? I bet you are. 30,000 feet reclining on a beige lazy boy.
With the idea that not only am I not part of the problem by paying for the offsets, but also through the billions that my Breakthrough Energy group is spending, that I'm part of the solution.
You are part of the solution. He's definitely not part of the problem. He isn't part of the problem when he's making massive donations to the media for favourable reporting. He's not part of the problem when he's funding vaccine organisations then getting out just before stock prices drop. He's not part of the problem when he's giving billions to the WHO. He's not part of the problem when the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is accruing more money than they spend, making a not-for-profit organisation, well, you could say profitable. I'm sure Bill Gates has got some explanation. Maybe he's offsetting that profit in some way by helping us in ways that we're too stupid to understand. But on the surface, it looks like Bill Gates does what he wants, then justifies it afterwards. But I must be too stupid to understand what's really going on.
I mean, these are the reasons why this guy is getting censored right now. These are the reasons why they're trying to smear the hell out of him. And it's going to continue that way. They want to control the information. So here is Max Blumenthal, friend of the show. YouTube demonetized our entire live stream today at the Gray Zone News simply because we played this clip during the discussion about Russell Brand affair. It's crazy because he was talking about, the video. He said, "Hello, boys and girls, a little bit different of a show today," and he was talking about defending himself. So by doing so, they're saying that you're attacking the person or the accuser or whatnot, and you're going after that person. You're attacking him. You're bullying.
Oh, wow.
That is the comment.
Who could have thought that stupid believe women thing would lead to this stupid thing? I don't understand how... I don't understand the people in charge now don't get that Me Too's done. I don't know how they don't get it yet. Because all the big name ones... Again, Marilyn Manson... It's crazy the lengths that maniac chick went to like frame Marilyn Manson. You could go look it up. I don't hear nobody talking about how that turned out. Amber Heard's the one that killed it. Again, she killed it.
It might be killed in the public eye as far as the work, as far as its effectiveness working when it comes to smearing. But then they can come in with the tactics right behind, right, Misha? And they can start demonetizing, and they can start saying, "We're going to demonetize your channel for something you did outside of off your channel."
Or something
so they
that we
use
don't know
that
you
mechanism.
Wait, something we don't know. Someone accused you of this. Now, I didn't see anybody taking down clips of Hillary Clinton's gutsy because she's been accused of murder, which is a serious charge.
Which we also know it's the ruling class. She works for the ruling class. She's part of the ruling class. He is not. He's pushing back against it. So it worked as far as the effectiveness of being able to demonetize him and slow him down as far as his voice. Remember, right now to the ruling class, they don't work for the people who make the money. I mean, excuse me, they work for the people who do make the money, right? They're not just out to get the money. They're at the top of the food chain. So
People
to them,
the
most valuable resource and so, as far as, quelling it is information, is independent voices. That's what they need to silence. That's their greatest threat. Last clip of the segment.
Have energy companies that profit when there's an energy crisis, military industrial complex that profits when it's a war, pharmaceutical companies that profit when there's a pandemic. You're creating the necessity for ongoing crisis.
Yes.
If the elites in the society benefit from situations that are detrimental to everybody else, that's what reality is going to become. That's what reality has become.
That's such an important point, because that's almost undeniable. And to say that they wouldn't do that because they value human life and morals and ethics over profit, that's never been exhibited. That's not true.
What's this music behind these things? I mean, I wish they wouldn't.
Okay. But I want to make a point of this just to wrap up and put a bow on this right now, because a lot of people will talk to about Russell Brand and his relationship to Yuval Harari, right? Harari, excuse me, back in the days. The WEF guy. Yuval Harari.
Oh, Igor to Klaus Schwab?
Yeah, that guy. So they'll show a picture of him hugging and whatnot, and they'll be like, "Oh, you got it." Well, they'll use that to say therefore you can't listen to him on anything he says.
Who does this?
A lot of people. A lot of the people we were talking about, the tinfoil hats, some of those people, they'll always make those connections.
Carnies and Ren Fair people. I mean,
it's the information is what I'm trying to say. I don't give a shit who says it's bad. I'm saying that it's the information that's so much more important than actually who's saying it. They'll always try to smear the person who's saying it, whether it be the mainstream media trying to smear him of rape, or the tinfoil hats that will smear him for his relationship with the WEF.
How big is
it doesn't make a difference. That information is what's important.
If you have a big platform, I want to punch something every time I say the word platform, by the way. I hate it. Anyway, if you have one, you're obligated to use it how we want you to use it. And that's been going on since 2012. 2011, it was after Occupy Wall Street. That was when the successful diversion to identity bullshit happened. And then I just watch it just go up more and more into absurd. And now the only it's
since so what? Since when?
2011, 2012.
And you said, and what was
As
it?
the Mayans prophesied.
It was against Occupy Wall Street, right?
That's when we convert. That's when racism suddenly became upstream from class.
Why? Because we started looking at...
Because a bunch of Wall Street, it was like...
We were starting to look at the actual lords of, the rulers there. The ruling class, that's what that's about.
Yes, I know. I remember not liking, because all the left stuff I saw was people trying to police comedy, anyway, that's all I saw. And I was happy with Occupy Wall Street, because I hope they have them like a bongo circle, and those guys jump out the windows because they can't take it. Yeah. So I was automatically on the side of people that I naturally just disliked. So that's a bad... They're not going to not take that seriously. Of course they did. And they immediately got to work being like, no, class is downstream of race.
Yep. I mean, I think it's just all about the information that's coming out. We shouldn't be once again, anybody who says anything that lets you understand or makes you understand or gets you to think that, listen, maybe isn't it my neighbor who's the problem? Maybe instead of start looking across the street, we should start looking up. Anybody who points that out and gets you thinking that way is going to be a threat to the empire.
That's all Bill Clinton wanted to tell us, but we accused him of the work.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Tampa, Boca Raton, Orlando, Dallas, Houston, San Diego, Bloomington, Illinois, Indianapolis, and Levittown, New York. Wow, that's a lot of dates. See you there.